In what is a pretty big victory for voters in Utah as well as democracy, a judge has just struck down the state legislature's gerrymandered congressional maps, and in its place has reinstated the citizen-led redistricting reforms that voters had approved back in 2018. So Judge Dianna Gibson ruled on Monday that the Utah legislature's repeal of Proposition 4, the voter-approved Independent Redistricting Commission and anti-gerrymandering law, was unconstitutional. Nice. Proposition 4 is the law in Utah on redistricting, HB 2004, the 2021 Congressional Map, which was not enacted under SB 200, and not Proposition 4, cannot lawfully govern future elections in Utah, Gibson wrote. Use of HB 2004, the 2021 Congressional Map, in any future elections is hereby enjoined. Now, that basically means that the ruling has permanently blocked the use of the Republican-drawn 2021 congressional maps that had split up Salt Lake County into 4 districts, which dilutes the power of non-Republican voters. Gibson added that the legislature intentionally stripped away all of Proposition 4's core redistricting standards and procedures that were mandatory and binding on it. To permit the 2021 congressional plan to remain in place would reward the very constitutional violation this court has already identified and would nullify the people's 2018 redistricting reform. And there you go. Now, the court has also ordered lawmakers to redraw Utah's congressional districts under the rules of Proposition 4. They have until September 24th to deliver a new compliant plan. If they fail, or if the new maps do not meet the law standards, plaintiffs and other groups may submit their own maps for the courts to consider. Look, I think that this is actually a pretty big deal, especially given the context of what Texas is currently attempting to do. Remember, they have approved a map that would give Republicans 5 additional seats by splitting up minority districts. And they did so, of course, without even waiting for the census in 2030 because Donald Trump is afraid of losing seats. Now, of course, what's interesting about the Texas maps is that they may have actually, on accident, created a dummy mander, which would actually make 10 seats swing seats. Oops. In trying to get 5 more seats for themselves, they endanger 10 others. Might have. Which, again, a little bit of a whoopsie, if it turns out to be that way. But, look, Republicans, thanks to Trump, they're getting a little greedy, and it could blow up in their face. Which would be hilarious, but at the same time, Texas should have never done this, okay? But look, the reality of the situation is Donald Trump does not care for democracy, and here you have Republicans that are enacting his will because they also don't care about democracy. Look, Republicans at this point would rather much choose their voters than having to reach out to win more votes. I mean, that's what gerrymandering is. That's what gerrymandering has always been about, choosing your own voters instead of having to compete to have the voters choose you. Now, that said, you might be like, well, what about Gavin Newsom? Well, for one, I don't much like Gavin Newsom. So if you want to talk crap about him in the audience, in the comment section, cool. I'm totally fine. I'm fine with that, right? He's thrown trans people under the bus, homeless people under the bus, and so I'm not exactly his biggest fan. But let's be very, very clear about Gavin Newsom, right? He told Texas, you might want to not do your extremely partisan gerrymandering maps, okay? You take your maps back and you draw a fair map, but if you don't, then yes, I'm going to do my own partisan gerrymandering. Texas refused, and now Newsom's like, all right, well, game on, motherfucker. Okay, what Gavin Newsom is doing on this issue is fighting fire with fire. And I'm okay with that. All right. Again, I don't like being here at this point. I don't like seeing this happen. I don't like I don't like any government, whether it be Democrat or Republican, doing this whole redistricting thing to benefit themselves. I hate this idea, right? But understand that if one side is not going to follow the rules, then why should the other side? Why should the other side? And so if you are going to fight dirty in order to protect an alleged criminal pedophile president and his enablers, then don't expect people to sit back and let it happen. And that's what's going on here. Okay. And so, yes, I as much as I do not like Gavin Newsom or his, him standing to try to be basically the presidential nominee for 2028, I enjoy his trolling. I'm having fun with it. I like to see it. I like when someone actually stands up and fights against Donald Trump. Whether it be performative or not, all politics basically is performative. But when you have him actually saying, all right, well, you're going to partisan gerrymander, then I'm going to partisan gerrymander. All right, great. Let's do it. That's all I'm saying here. Okay. But anyway, look, I'm glad that the judge in Utah is throwing out these massively gerrymandered maps. At the end of the day, I believe that independent redistricting is a better way to go. I mean, if we all had independent redistricting, then this would have never been an issue in the first place. This would have never happened in Texas because that independent redistricting, effort, the commission would have been like, I'm sorry, but no, you're going to have to wait till 2030. You can't do this. And then gone. All right. So what Texas is doing is showing you why every state that hasn't created one already should adopt an independent redistricting, commission. Maybe similar to Utah, because apparently they did something right there. Utah is a bit of a mixed bag. They're a red state, but sometimes on some issues, they actually do rather well. I mean, at one point, they actually provided homes to homeless people, and it was a massive success. And then, of course, they pulled back on it because they're Republicans, and they, don't really care about solving the real issue. Okay? But, again, this is a great example of what we, should be doing. The system working as it should to protect voters and to not dilute voters, the voting power of, people in cities. Because I don't want to see anybody's voting power diluted, right? But again, if you have these Republican politicians that are going in and trying to do this incredibly partisan gerrymandering in order to not have to be, held accountable to the voters, well, then, yeah, I want to see those things absolutely defeated. And I want to see more independent redistricting and it's amazing that this, entire thing has existed since the 1800s and hasn't been solved yet. And of course, the reason that it hasn't been solved is because there are politicians that just do not want to give away the power that they have in choosing their own voters. And so I'm hoping that going forward in the future, we can find a way to ensure that all the congressional maps are drawn fairly so that, yes, we choose our representatives and not the other way around. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.